Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you guys are tuning in from around the world. And welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys, Dave and Jack. And as you can see, we are joined by special guests, getting our Thursday show back up and running with Shawnee from Spurs Talk Show and Ben from We Are Tottenham TV. Let's go around the houses, check in, see how everyone is. Jack, how are you this evening, my man?
Yeah, everything all good over here. Went on a nice run after what feel like has been like a week of sickness. Decide to leave the Richarlison jersey at home, not to annoy anybody or really, start any fights, while on my run. Just sort of kind of kept it simple and looking forward to long-awaited debate show.
We've got a lot to discuss this evening. Of course, our great head scout, Gabbanini, came out, done an interview. Plenty to talk about off the back of that. Also, we'll be talking about, there's a bit of debate going around about our form lately. Are we reaching our full potential? Also, our January transfer plans were revealed today by Charlie Eccleshare of The Athletic. So we'll also be talking about that and why we seem to be targeting Aston Villa's scouting department. So a lot to get through tonight. But look, we'll go down to Shawnee. Shawnee, how are you, my man?
I'm good. Good to be back with you guys. It's been a little breather, hasn't it? We haven't done it for a while. So, yeah, it's good to be back. Shout out to everyone in the panel. Shout out to the chat. And I hope everyone is keeping happy and healthy, doing the things they love.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. And guys, throughout the show, please get over and show your love over to Spurs Talk Show and smash the subscribe button. On to Benji from We Are Tottenham TV. How are you keeping, sir?
Top of the league, mate. I'm absolutely on top of the league, on top of the world, loving life at the moment. So things couldn't be better. And I'm looking forward to smashing the Chelsea scum this weekend. So let's do it.
Oh, look, I'm a bit apprehensive going into that game. I think we will do it, but, just the fact it's a London derby, it makes me a little bit nervous. But, if the crowd can come to the party, make it intimidating, I think we absolutely smash them up. So, Benji, that's what I need you to do. Lead from the front. Same with you, Shawnee. Lead from the front at the game Monday night and make sure it's a very intimidating atmosphere for that Chelsea team. But look, we're not going to waste any time. Benji has to get home. He's got dinner and to get to. And also Shawnee, has an evening of plans ahead of him as well, just like myself and Jack. So Jacko, over to you, my man. Let's get straight into it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you get your comments in as we go along. As you know, we'll bring them up. Also, get questions in and, feel free, to smash that like button and share it out as well. But Jacko, over to you, lad.
Well, let's just start first with maybe a certain sort of opportunity that Spurs can have. And we have an opportunity to get the double again when it comes to the manager of the month and player of the months. Shawnee, will you be voting for Rombom to get his player of the month? I voted for Vic for the big save. Do Spurs have a chance of getting the double once again?
I would imagine this time around, I think the manager of the month might be Aston Villa's Unai Emery. I'd be surprised if they gave it three on the bounce. I mean, they might do technically, I guess, if you're still undefeated, why not? But I just think that Unai Emery's also done very well. I don't know, maybe Arteta. Listen, I think there's a couple of people that could be up for it. And who are the players you mentioned?
Romero is our candidate for tonight. I didn't mention any of the others because I decided to keep my bubble, very small, where I only think that a Spurs player should win it. But Romero is the candidate. Is he a deserving candidate for Spurs, do you think?
Yeah, he's been spectacular, mate. He's been absolutely out of this world. Amazing what the difference a year can make. I didn't think he was great leading into the World Cup last year, but this season with the added responsibility, playing with someone better around him.
We know you didn't.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But he's won me back over massively, and I fully support his manager of the month if he gets it.
Sean's vote matters just as much as everybody else's, Ben's, when we're
100%. It probably matters more than most other people, to be fair.
What do you make of, maybe our chances to win the double again? Is it a possibility? And, is that probably something that's never been done before, I would think. So could they actually do it?
I don't think we're going to win the double. I do think that we're going to win the Manager of the Month award. When you're looking at the candidates so far, not the candidates, Arteta, Emre, Klopp and Postecoglou. Postecoglou is the only one on that list that has a 100% win record for the month. So I think it has to go to Ange, to be honest. The other three candidates have all won 2 and drawn 1. Ange has won all 3. So I think it has to go to Ange for a third consecutive month. In terms of the player of the month, you've got Cuti Romero, Declan Rice, Pedro Neto, Brian Mbeumo, Douglas Luiz and Mohamed Salah. And I think it has to go to Mo Salah, to be honest. 5 goals in 3 games as well. I think Cuti has been unbelievable this month, but when you're looking at Mo Salah, I just think he's been a class above the rest. So 5 goals in 3 games, you can't really look past him in my opinion.
Douglas Luiz has done. Has Douglas Luiz scored 3 goals or 2?
He's scored 2 and 1 assist.
Yeah,
not bad from a kind of box to box midfielder as well. I think,
very true.
Sure, how many of them were penalties though? If any of them, maybe one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe none.
Sure. I'm not sure, maybe none. But Ben did say that, Ange deserves it, Shawnee. And I do have a question that I saw has sort of been circulating around sort of Twitter these days, that perhaps in sort of the last 4 matches, Spurs have been, in a way, kind of lucky. You look at Liverpool, Luton Town, Fulham, Palace, all have either been kind of, in quote unquote, lucky performances by some fans, or kind of seen as maybe for the most part, not the most convincing of performances by Spurs. So does Ange even really deserve it if you would say the last 4 matches haven't been Spurs at their best?
I don't think they've been lucky. I think they've been tough games because all of them dug in and did the low block. And the low block is it's not always easy to break that stuff down. I think that, we didn't take our chances early against Luton. But ultimately it was, down to 10 men. I think that was a really hard graft in performance. Liverpool, obviously, you just don't know what would have happened in that game had it been 11 versus 11 or had the goal stood. Like a whole new reality and timeline emerges. But once they went down to 9 men, they just sat back and put up the brick wall. Sheffield United largely did the same, as did Fulham. So I think that I wouldn't say they've been lucky. Like they haven't necessarily been overwhelmingly convincing, but it's difficult if you don't score early against a low block team and you go in and it's 35-40 minutes and it's still 0-0. You can start to get a little bit on tenterhooks around the pressure of trying to find a way to break them down. But Tottenham have done it ultimately every time. So I wouldn't call them lucky at all. I think that we need to up our level a little bit. I think that we're coming into a run of fixtures now though that where a few more of the teams are going to come out and play against us, and I think then we'll get a really good insight into what where we're really at starting on Monday night.
If I wanted to worry you though at all, Sean, going into Monday night, wouldn't it worry you that it's been over 4 games since you have seen Spurs at their best going into a massive game in a way? Like, is that sort of change?
Well, no, I think our best performances this season for me were Burnley, a team that played against us and got punished. Manchester United, a team that tried to play against us, and I think we were overwhelmingly comfortable by the end of that game. I think that we haven't really played that many teams that come out and play against us. Liverpool tried, obviously, like I say, the game was spoilt. So I think that Tottenham will play. I think Monday night will be absolutely fine. I've had a bet for 4-0 Tottenham. I think we're gonna tear them apart. So I understand the logic for why you're saying we haven't, like on paper, it's been difficult, but I think we're going to play against a team that's going to come out and play against us. The weather might be bad. It's going to be slippery. The crowd's going to be right up for a couple of beers after work on a Monday. It's going to be a palpably a difficult environment for Chelsea. And I think that Tottenham are going to show everybody that we mean business.
Yeah. Sounds like I've failed in trying to knock you off your cloud 9 of confidence right now. Can I knock Ben?
Mate. This chair is too sturdy, mate. No one's knocking me off.
Indeed, it looks very grounded. Ben, if I were to try to worry you, and I am going to try, it has been over 4 matches since you've seen a 4-0 type performance that Sean has been sort of describing, or even one as good as it was against Bournemouth or Burnley, right? It's been a while since we've seen Spurs at their best. Does that worry you at all that maybe we've been lucky or unconvincing recently?
I think Ange said it spot on. First of all, I echo a lot of what Sean just said, but I think what Ange has been saying is like we've been winning games because our defense has been that good with Coutinho Romero, Mickey van der Ven, Udogie on the left, Porro on the right, albeit Udogie wasn't there last game. But I think our defense has been so good and the midfield in front of the defense has been brilliant. Our attacking play has not been as fluid as we would have liked or we would have wanted to. But I don't think that doesn't worry me at all, because I think if our defense is solid and if we can keep that solidity in our team, then I have no worries that we're going to keep winning games, because we're always going to find a goal or 2 minimum, I think, in games, because we've just got the clinical edge with Heung-min Son up top, whether it be Brennan Johnson or Richarlison, both of them are contributing. You're looking on the right-hand side, Kulusevski, who I think is doing a really underrated job for the team. So as much as we do need upgrades and do need changes in the front line, I think they're doing their job at the moment and the team looks solid. And that's what's giving me the most hope at the moment, is how solid we look in defence with Mickey van de Ven and Cuti Romero. And I think when fans are talking about how lucky we've been in the last 4 games, I don't buy into that narrative whatsoever. I think we were the much better team against Fulham and deserved to win the game. Against Luton, we should have been 4-0 up in the space of 10 minutes in the beginning of that game. And
that's true.
Look, we got a goal from a set piece in the end, but that game, if you take the actual game and look at it objectively, that should have been a landslide victory of about 5-6-0, to be honest, even with the sending off. So, and when you're looking at the Liverpool game, everyone tells me, oh, it was a lucky win, we should never have won that game. And yes, the way we won it was lucky. 100% I agree with that. But again, if you look at the game objectively, we did have a bit of a hard time, 11v11. But I feel like when that first sending off went till the 9-man, they went down to 9 men, I thought we were well on top and could have got a goal or 2 in that period of time in the game. So I think we actually were the better team in all 4 of those games. And yeah, maybe there have been slices of luck of how the victory has come about, but I still think we've been the better team in all 4 of those games. So I don't think we've actually been lucky to pick up those wins.
So what you're trying to say is when you actually just look at those scores in isolation, one would say, yeah, they kind of been lucky. But if you said, no, you actually watch back the 90 minutes, Spurs were actually a lot better than what the scoreline suggests.
We've deserved every result we've got this season. 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Dave, are you in agreement with them, or are you maybe slightly nerved by, the fact that Spurs haven't played as well, at least according to some, in the last 4 matches or so?
Look, I'll be honest, I can understand both sides of the argument. I think there is an element that we played well. I think there is also an element that we could be doing a lot better. But look, I think the boys highlighted, look, the back line, the goalkeeper, and midfield, fine. I don't think there's much improvement there. But Ange also spoke about it, right? About the front line not being fluid. And that's been our biggest thing. I think where this conversation comes about is that we're not being as clinical maybe as we once were. And against Palace the last game, the chances sort of dried up a lot. But like the boys said, when when you're coming up against low block teams, it's difficult. But now the onus is on us. We know where we need to improve, because when we're top of the league, more and more teams are going to come up and set up against us like that. So the onus is on us now to find a way of breaking down these teams and breaking them down a bit more convincingly. But if we would have took our chances, in a lot of them games, I do think, the conversation would be different. I don't like this luck thing. I'm one of them. I believe a lot of the times you make your own luck, right? You do the right things and you end up benefiting from a decision and stuff like that. So I believe we've made our own luck. And also the sign of a good team, what everyone says is, even when you're not playing well, how do you get over the line? And in years gone by, we haven't been able to do that when we haven't played well. And we haven't been able to salvage points from games. But this time we're still finding a way to win games. So for me, look, I think there is an element of both, but I think it's not so much that we're not playing well. It's just that front three hasn't clicked. It's been a massive problem since preseason. The winger situation isn't right. But when you look at the squad and a lot of the injuries we've had, a lot of them have been to the wingers. So there's no surprise that maybe that isn't right yet, because they haven't had much playing time to settle in playing with one another, like the midfield have, like the back line have had. There's been constant chopping and changing on that left-hand side, even from the start of the season. Richarlison played up front. Son has since moved in there. So there's been a lot of chopping and changing up in that. And I think now that we're seeing bodies back, I think Postecoglou will start putting his preferred front three out there. And I do think you'll see it start being more clinical.
Dave, when was the last time we actually dominated both halves, though, says Daniel here in the comments?
I agree with that. Like that's still one of my things. You look at us, I think the majority, we are still more or less a second half team. But
you don't need to dominate. You don't need to dominate the entire 90 minutes to deserve the 3 points. There's always going to be swings and roundabouts, momentum shifts. There's always going to be moments where, I don't think you necessarily have
people
to
want a 10 out of 10 though, Sean, and they haven't gotten a 10 out of 10 performance in a while now.
No, there's definitely no. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's been a 10 out of 10 performance at all this season. I think there's been mistakes and sloppiness or slips or whatever in every game. But it's like as a human being, you're always going to make mistakes. You just hope every day you make more good decisions than bad decisions, right? Yeah. And then if you do that every day, then you're going to be in a better place generally. So I feel like the same with football teams. No team is perfect. There's always going to be moments where you give up opportunities, and I don't think you need to dominate to deserve the 3 points. Personally.
People always love having a moan and a complain, right? That's what we are as football fans.
They
Everyone
have to
just
work
loves
harder
to
than
moan
ever,
and,
though, Ben, to find an
look,
angle.
moan and complain, finding hard to find all these kind of ways to put us down. But the fact of the matter is, we're top of the league. We're unbeaten. We've only dropped points in 2 games this season, away at Brentford and away at Arsenal, and we deserve to be where we are, 100%.
I don't know what you guys think of this theory, but a lot of kind of said there would be that rough period under Ange, and even he said, right, that there is going to be stages, especially in the beginning, where it's going to take a while for everything to sort of kind of come together and sort of be, kind of a cohesive sort of functioning kind of unit and system and everything. For the most part, we've been flying high and we're top of the league. Could these last 4 games or so, with what people are alluding to, maybe not playing well in both halves, could this be a version of that sort of rough beginning period of Ange's kind of a reign? Is that maybe this is the version of that, and that we haven't been playing as well as we did in the first, few games, and now this sort of period could be that sort of example of it? What do you think?
Me?
Go ahead. Yeah, Shawnee, sorry. Throwing that theory at anybody.
I think a little bit of the story, the narrative playing out, is that people weren't expecting Tottenham to play the way they did, to play it as quickly as they did, and caught everyone a little bit by surprise, right? And of course, over time, when you've got every team out there running the tape, reviewing, preparing for games, they're going to start to be more familiar with Tottenham, and then ultimately they're going to start to create ways to shut it down. But I'd also, just to not to put the fear of God that we're about to be found out, I don't think so. I think that we've got more levels to learn. Ange already said we're well ahead of where he thought we would be, and that's going to afford him the opportunity to give out more tools to his players that he didn't think they were ready for yet. So I think that, we're going to be, it's obviously going to be a bit of a race, right? How quickly the opposition can learn our system and prepare for us, versus how quickly can we accelerate and grow and become better at it ourselves. But I think ultimately, you're going to have moments in the season where your form's not going to be quite, be there. You're going to have periods where everything's going in the right direction. It's just swings and roundabouts. This is what happens during the course of a 9-month campaign.
Could this be the pad? Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
And the thing is, look, this is only the start of something, I think everyone sort of gets carried away as well, right? We're only 11 games into Postecoglou's regime, and this is how it's starting, and this is how quickly the players have picked it up. It will get better, in my opinion. The more they get used to it, the more they keep winning, the more confidence that will be in them, and the more of a better product you will see. And the thing is, we don't want to peak too early. I'm happy to go under the radar right now. I'm happy to be called lucky, right? Well, not by rival fans. It pisses me off. I'll just give it back to them all the time because I hate their clubs. But, we want to peak from January onwards. That's when we really want to peak, the business end of the season, where it really matters. So, I'm not really too concerned about it right now. We can get whatever's not right, we have a chance in January to be able to fix it. So, from January onwards, where the business end comes around is really where you want to be hitting the peak, is really where you want to be thriving. Man City, the most points they drop is between the start of the season and Christmas. After that is when they go on the run, come the business end of the season. And that's where we really want to be peaking. You don't want to peak now. It's too early.
Yeah, I can see that. Ben, what did you make of my theory quickly? And then we'll move on to Gabbanini's departure. I mean, could this be our rough period if there was to be one?
Look, I think there's going to be loads of ups and downs throughout the whole course of a season. We're only 10 games into a Premier League season with a completely new manager, new philosophy, new everything. And I think we are riding a bit of a wave at the moment. And I think, look, we're doing really well, playing really well. But I'm looking at the fixtures over the next 6 games, and that's going to be a real test for me. And if we can, if by come the end of the Newcastle game, we've got Chelsea home, Wolves away, Villa at home, City away, West Ham at home, and Newcastle at home. If we can come out of those 6 games and still be where we are right now, I mean, I really think the world's going to be our oyster, and I think we can actually genuinely do the unthinkable this season, or at least challenge for it. But I do suspect that there will be some sort of bumps along the road in these next 6 games, because they are very difficult games. And once these 6 games are over, we've pretty much, apart from a few odd teams, we've pretty much played everyone in this league. So can you imagine if we've played everyone in the league already and we're still unbeaten in this league? I mean,
we've got most of the top teams away from home now in the second half of the season, haven't we?
Yeah, all in the last month, or the last month and a half as well. But what I'm saying, it's Sean, like that as well. Like if we've got all the top teams at that period, we have to be within a fighting chance. We need to be like right up there once we get to those fixtures. And if we can get through those next 6 games without a defeat, I don't doubt that we will be, because we should be beating the rest of those teams.
The thing is, just quickly. The thing is, we're finding ways, and that's what we should be concentrating on. In my opinion, there's been so many questions asked of us. Can we get our away form back on track where it was piss poor the last 4 years? Yes, we can. Can we make our home place a fortress? So far, we've been able to do that. Then, can you go to some of the bigger teams and still pick up results playing this style of football? Well, we got a result at the Emirates where we never usually do, and we beat Liverpool playing that way. How will we respond if we go down to 10 men? Do we have that team spirit, that camaraderie to still come out of the game with something? Well, we answered that. Yes, it may be only Luton, but in years gone by, these are all things that we could not do. So, there's a lot of positives I'm seeing. Now it's just about maintaining it. I think the biggest problem is maybe trying to keep a lid on it everywhere, because what we don't want to do is get too excited too soon, because it will then come back to affect the players and stuff like that. But look, we are improving. We've improved on last year. I would argue in years gone by, there's been periods where we look like we could be that team, but ultimately, the old regime and the old, maybe what I would call the leadership group, the psychology and around the team came back to play its part, and we couldn't sustain it. But now that we've got a lot of them out of the team and we've got a new mentality in there, Postecoglou's on for his 3rd manager in a month. Maddison, Son, and if Romero wins this month, that's all 3 of our leadership, all picked up Player of the Month awards, all 3 of our captains within the first 3 months of the season. So there's a lot of things going right now. And if it's just about, the biggest question is, we've been here before. We were here under Conte. We were here under Jose. Let's not pretend we weren't. The biggest thing now is, can we sustain it? Are we right that the likes of Dyer and all their old mentality were the problem? Let's wait and see.
The biggest thing is injuries, though, isn't it? That's the biggest thing. That's the only thing that can stop us, in my opinion, because there are so many different positions in this team where if we get an injury, then we look really screwed. And we might be able to handle it for the odd game here and the odd game there, like we saw with Bissouma being out for the game that he was out for. But I worry, if any of these players like Bissouma, Romero, Van de Ven, Maddison, Son are out for any extended amount of time, then I do think our form will falter for it.
Do you know what about the injuries, right? I see on Twitter all the time our rival fans saying, Tottenham haven't had any injuries yet, haven't had any meaningful injuries. Like, what are you talking about? Bentancur hasn't kicked the ball since January, November. It was the last time he's out. It was our best player last year, or one of our second best player last year. We haven't got him back yet. And for a team that relies on their wingers to go at players and to cross the ball in, or to at least take on dribbling, to be without the 2 wingers that we have that are most naturally people that drive at players like Perisic and Manuel Solomon is meaningful. It's meaningful. Right? So this nonsense, people always seem to forget. People they only remember their own injuries. They always forget everyone else's. But Tottenham have already had injury challenges this season. And if Bentancur's back soon, then I think we go up another level, because the midfield is where you win and lose games most of the time, in my opinion. And to have Bentancur back is going to be sensational.
But Sean, we have been lucky in a sense that we've had scares with Son, we've had scares with Maddison. And I think if those scares became a reality, I think we might be talking a bit differently right now.
Yeah, no, of course. But I think you can make the same argument, though, for literally everyone. I think most people would say everybody apart from City. Everybody apart from City, you lose one meaningful player. If Saliba goes down injured for Arsenal, or if Odegaard goes to guard, or Saka, Martinelli, if they go out for a meaningful period of time, they fall apart just as much as Tottenham would. Newcastle,
I think it's warranted for City too.
It was what I was going to say. Like with City, everyone thought City have got 2 world-class players or 2 classy players in every position. They lost Rodri for a period of time.
Yeah, that was the point I was about to make. Yeah,
he's the only one.
And without De Bruyne and Rodri, they looked a little bit,
well, they almost have no excuse for it, because they have years and years and years under Pep Guardiola that they've already had established, and they have a blank check, in the first place, that they can already use, that in case they found themselves dependent on one player, they could find a way more than almost any other team to, find that solution for it. But the fact that even them, of all teams, still find themselves geez, actually, we are kind of really dependent on this Rodri guy in order to get results, says a lot. So really, in the case of injuries,
the one injury away kind of argument was why Tottenham are never going to sustain it, I think you can make exactly the same argument for all the teams we're competing with.
It's more
I
dependent
tell
on
you,
which player you're
if
talking
Declan
about in the
Rice gets
system,
injured
it
for
feels like.
Arsenal, they will fall apart. I
Yep.
promise you. Did you see them last night without Declan Rice? How poor they were.
Terrible.
Did you
They
see
were
them in the
absolutely
second half against us without Declan Rice? How poor they are. That one player is holding that whole team together.
It's
Yeah.
more whatever player within the system falls injured, right? Whereas in our case is that we do have a plethora of wingers, and the wingers do kind of more or less, are kind of instructed to do a lot of the same things. And if we have guys that maybe one is better than another, but they all sort of can compete with each other for those positions, we don't feel, the hit as much as maybe other teams might. But if we had that sort of loss to a Mickey Van de Ven or even, a Destiny Udogie, like we felt, against Crystal Palace, all of a sudden, though, you do see that the form can slip and the results can slip. It seems like injuries can be used as an excuse only if it's really dependent on like a certain player in kind of the system. And if you really have no one else in the team that can execute it in that sort of way like he can. And turns out even teams like City do, which is crazy to think about, or even, further with Newcastle and other sort of, gigantic kind of big Czech sort of clubs, I would say. But sort of as well, kind of moving on to, a certain man of recruitment that has sadly left Tottenham Hotspur. He had an interview with The Athletic today, and I sort of want to, cast our minds back. I'm not sure if Dave was with us, but I was with your brother, Sim, and I was talking to Johnny as well, the lovely Johnny, and we were kind of all a little upset about Gabbanini kind of being shown the door, and he gave an interview about it, and he sort of said that, pretty much he was given sort of the he wasn't really shown, the opportunity to get a promotion or really kind of rise in the ranks in the recruitment. And he didn't really want to keep, I think, his old sort of position in the club because he saw that there was a lot of guys that were going to be hired perhaps ahead of him. So he decided to move on. What did you make of kind of Gabbanini's departure? I'll start with you, Shawnee, just because, at the time, like I said, cast our minds back to maybe it might have been close to a month ago. A lot of people were really upset about Gabbanini leaving. Now that we're kind of maybe told something different from Gabbanini's sort of mind, that maybe it sort of was inevitable. What do you make of, his departure?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. I don't really share the same opinions as a lot of people that I've spoken to about this. Like, I personally thought that Gabbanini, obviously, like, we don't know like how much experience. Obviously, he doesn't have that much experience making those decisions. In that interview, he said he kind of, by hook or by crook, he found himself in a position where he was suddenly acting as though he was a director. He loved it. He felt like he thrived on it. He really appreciated the opportunity to speak directly with the decision maker, i.e. Daniel Levy. A lot of love and respect for Levy, a lot of love and respect for the opportunity. But ultimately, when the changes were made to the structure of the club over the last 3 or 4 months, the club decided that they wanted to expand that system and that they wanted to bring people in that were, had a little bit more experience being the chief or the director role. And I think that it's a reasonable take. It's a reasonable stance to say, look, if we're going to go in a new direction in such an important role, are you going to put all your eggs in the basket of a kid or like a relatively immature in terms of experience, inexperienced, better word than immature, inexperienced guy, albeit he's done really well for us? Probably not. Like, you probably do want to have people that have been around the block a little bit and that can do it. And I think it's reasonable for him to say, well, you know what, I've tasted the next level. And I don't want to now go back to a level where I've got 2 or 3 bosses before, two or 3 layers of the onion before I get to the top. So it came across to me, the interview, like he was very proud of what he did. He really appreciated the experience. He thinks he succeeded and stepped up in the moment. But, it wasn't for Tottenham at the time to give him that full role and responsibility. And I think that I understand
would have been a risk, right? In a way, no matter how well he did.
Risk, yeah. It's a massive risk because in Daniel Levy's mind, you don't know whether it's just a one-hit wonder, like he's found Van de Ven, he was responsible for Vicario and Destiny dogging stuff, but you don't know how deep that talent pool goes, and so maybe it was just a little bit too soon. But listen, I like to think that maybe the door's open for him to come back in 3 or 4 years' time, once he's kind of sort of earned his Spurs, so to speak, somewhere else. A higher profile club as a director. I like to think it's a revolving door and that he can come back in. I do understand the decision from a business perspective from Daniel Levy. Whether the people we're going for in Langer and McKenzie are the right guys remains to be seen. I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I think it was a really, really open, honest, and impressive interview, to be honest.
If he wasn't going to stick around as chief scout, Ben, then he basically wanted probably Johan Lang's job. And would you have then given, if you were in Daniel Levy's case, would you have given Gabbanini, Johan Lang's current job, or would you have said to him, listen, man, you don't have enough experience, a bit of a risk, rather go with somebody else?
For me, it's not the experience per se. I think he's done a really good job, Gabbanini. The summer business that he was central to, I think, was the caliber of player that has come in has been very good, and obviously helped us take us to a new level so far this season. But I think once you bring in Scott Munn to oversee the whole situation, you need to let him do his job, and you need to let him bring his own people in. And Gabbanini, from what I got from that interview, it sounds like he wants to be a sporting director. Obviously, that role is not available to him at Tottenham. So, look, I think we say thank you for the great work that you did do at the football club. And hopefully, like Sean said, we can see him in the future in maybe a role higher up than what he did in the summer. But you got to trust in Scott Munn and the people that he's brought in from Aston Villa, Johan Lange and everyone like that. So, look, I am a bit upset that he's gone, but I'm also excited for the future and to see what these new guys can do.
When I was talking to your brother and when I was talking to Johnny about it last time, they were, I would say, especially Johnny, and he was, he really loves, the work that Don Paratici has done, and he just doesn't want to see that kind of be taken down. I just sort of said, I think Paratici hired a bunch of go-getter, workaholic kind of guys that weren't going to be content with sort of keeping the same position that they have, at a club after what was the back of pretty decent success. They'll probably think that they deserve promotions, or they want more power, they want more autonomy, or they just want to be able to have a bigger say, and they want to be even more connected to the inner workings of the club and everything. And if they weren't given that opportunity, in the case of Gabbanini especially, I could totally understand if you're a motivated guy, you're an aspirational guy, you're not going to take that. You might actually, and I said it to them at the time, I said, maybe he sort of really sees, like, I learned from this experience at Spurs. It's almost like the experience at Spurs was like a really successful study abroad or something like that for him, where he's around for like a year, had great things to say, really had a great experience overall, was really, worked out for him. But I mean, you're not going to hire somebody, off the back of a pretty successful study abroad or internship of any kind. Like, I think he had to sort of still go and learn his craft. I trust that, there will be a Fiorentina of some kind that will give him a director of football role, and then he'll, move from there. And that's where I think it was always going to be for Gabbanini. Me personally, Dave, I think it would have been a bit of a risk. As much as I love Don Paratici's hirings and his men, felt like if you were going to give Gabbanini basically Johan Lange's job or Johan Lang's job, you would say actually Gabbanini has less of a convincing sort of resume in a regard than in comparison to Johan Lang. He hasn't had that sort of experience before. He only was sort of just thrown into it and did a great job with it. But that would have been a bit sort of un-Levy-like, to just give it to him off of the back of that. I think Levy was always going to give it to somebody else, more experienced.
Well, look, I think, I can understand that decision. We have to realize, you have to have guys in there that know what they're doing, that have that experience, that have experience of sort of good recruitment behind them, because we've seen how important the recruitment is. I'd almost argue it's probably just as important, if not maybe more important than the manager in football nowadays, in my opinion. Because if it goes wrong, you can see how much it can, how much detriment it can have on your squad and your standings and stuff like that. We've seen that at Tottenham with a lot of Steve Hitchens' recruitment. Look, I'll be honest. I wonder, is it just filling bums in seats until Paratici gets back? Because the minute Gabbanini wanted to become his own man, he's out the door. This new step up is in. I wonder, are they just ducks falling in the line until Paratici gets back to resume that role himself or resume a greater role? But whoever comes in, they're still operating off the directive of Paratici, in my opinion, because he hasn't gone anywhere. He ain't gone anywhere. And Daniel Levy absolutely loves the guy. He really wanted him when he brought him in. He listens to him. And you've seen the benefit in such a short space of time with the recruitment that he has brought in the direction we're going in. You merge the right manager of Postecoglou with that, and who knows where it can take us. So for me, I think it's just filling seats until Paratici gets back, to be honest with you.
Keep the espresso machine warm for Paratici, Sean.
Yeah, I think, Dave, you're making a really interesting point. And I worry, the most I worry about this Scott Munn thing, just zoom back in time, right? If Scott Munn comes in day one and relieves Gabbanini of his duties, or essentially gives him the boot, or has a conversation and says that it's not going to go the way you want it, I'm going to bring other people in. and so he parts ways. Scott Munn was supposed to be here on July the 1st, right? But because of him messing up with his gardening leave or whatever the story was, he gets delayed until November the 1st. If Scott Munn comes in on July the 1st and he makes the same decision, has the same conversation with Gabbanini July the 1st, do any of the transfers that Gabbanini was directly involved in that happened after July the 1st this summer actually take place? Don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they were long, like down the line of negotiations anyway. But to me, I do think that there is, and I completely agree with Ben. I've been saying it myself. I think that any new guy that comes in, a chief footballing officer, if you're coming in a highly like a figurehead role of an important area of the overall business and brand, for you just to come in and say, oh, I'm just going to carry on doing what the last guy was doing because it seems to be going in the same direction, then I don't think you're making a meaningful impact. And I've seen it in the businesses that I've worked for in America, like massive businesses, where people come in and they want to have their own stamp. They want to make their own mark and steer the company, steer their division in a new direction. And it's not always for the best. And I wonder a little bit about,
is that an ego thing with people, or is that just because people want to make sure that this is my thing, like this is my handprint?
Why are you here? Like, if I'm only here to fulfill someone else's, like, I left the business in America. I moved home from America because I was hired on the promise that I could steer the thing in my own direction, and got there and realized that wasn't the case. I'd been lied to, and I was fulfilling someone else's vision, right? And so I was like, I don't know why I gave up my happy life in Australia to come over here for that. So I felt like, annoyed by it.
Yeah.
And long story short, I think that Scott Munn's going to come in and want to stamp his authority, bring, like to Ben's point, bring in his own people. And that's fine, as long as the direction, if we're already going in generally the right direction, and it appears like we are, then as long as it's just like a gentle recalibration into wherever he sees there to be improvements and efficiencies. But if you're going to play military golf and pivot and go in a completely different direction, then you upset the apple cart, or at least you risk upsetting the apple cart. You risk like missing that cohesion that that's already been formed between. And even like Gabbanini said it, right? Like it's a trinity of belief systems. What the club wants, what the coach wants, what the owner wants. You've all got to be on the same page and pushing towards that direction. If Scott Munn comes in, and more importantly, if Paratici is still in the background, then you might end up with a situation where there's too many cooks and it spoils the broth. Too many people want to have their own vision, and it might end up with a little bit of bumping of heads that ultimately is going to be negative. I don't want to put that out into the ether. I just think it is a potential plausible scenario that we find in a year's time.
Look, I hear what you're saying. I'll be quick on this, Jack. I know we should have got to this ages ago. I do apologize, Tron and Jim as well. But look, when I look at it, I think it's a little bit different. I think Paratici is over the recruitment. I think Daniel Levy trusts him in that area. Scott Munn is coming in over the whole football, the women's side of the game and everything else. And I think what he's tasked to do is a little bit different. When you look at his background and his history is in growing things. He's done it with a lot of sports over there in Australia. He's done it with the women's team over there in Australia as well. And I wonder, is he being brought in for that sort of thing more so than actually focusing on the recruitment side of things? And I think that's where the difference will come in. Paratici, when he's back from his ban, will come in and he will head the recruitment. Scott Munn will head all the football and operations, which is a lot more than just the recruitment. And I think that's where the difference comes in. The reason why I think we brought in Langer, Sean, is because Gabbanini, great talent scout, and no problem getting players in here. But we failed again on getting players out. We didn't do enough to push players out the door. Some of them are still around here, even though their contract's running down. And it's not like Tottenham to try and force them out the door to take that fee, when they arrive in the summer. So I think Langer is being brought in primarily because Paratici, as we know, he can give the directives and everything else, but he can't negotiate deals. So you need someone in there that knows how to negotiate deals. And I think that's why Langer's being brought in, to be able to do the bits and pieces that Paratici can't actually legally do.
Okay. And then
it's not just Lang, is it? It's a whole team that we're bringing. Rob McKenzie as well, who's just come in, from Aston Villa. And it seems as though, I think they're all going to be them lot and Paratici, all one big team with Scott Munn, with Lang, with the other chap that we've bring in, with Rob McKenzie. And I think if Scott Munn and Paratici were going to bump heads, I think that would have happened already. And Scott Munn, his official start date was supposed to be that date that you said, Sean, but we know for sure 100% that he's been in the role for a lot longer. He's just been a bit unofficial, and he has been doing the work, and he has been in the role, and he's been working alongside Paratici. So I think if they were going to bump heads, I thought it would have happened already.
Sorry, but when I think I might have misspoken when I said Scott Munn. Obviously, Scott Munn is. I completely agree with you, Dave and Ben. I think that Scott Munn is a level above that. I personally think he's going to be brought in, especially with his knowledge on multi-club ownership. I think in a couple of years' time, that Enoch are going to go and nibble and buy some Irish team or some whatever Slovenian.
It's more the business side of things that he's brought in for on the footballing side of things.
So maybe I was thinking. Sorry, when I said Scott Munn, maybe I meant the potential clash at heads might be between Langer or Lange, however you say his name, and Paratici, because they are both essentially similar levels. He was similar at Aston Villa before Monchi came in, and Paratici similar at Tottenham. So I just wonder whether that one is maybe where there could be some.
They could be from two different schools of either recruitment styles, working styles as well, right? Even though I think they're both kind of interested in the analytics department and the data department. I think that they might get along actually in that regard, actually, Paratici and Lang, but maybe even the way they conduct business and the way they even go about it, right? Paratici was seen as, I think, again, when he first came in, he sort of apparently sort of disrupted the status quo around sort of kind of the Spurs recruitment team. They were kind of saying, what's this guy still doing? Work until 9 p.m. Why am I getting emails on weekends, and all these sort of things about what I need to do, and is that sort of thing. Not saying that Lang won't be similar, have any problem with that, but there is that sort of thing that they could sort of.
It's just a risk. It might be happy families, or it could be family feuds. Right? We just don't know yet. So
that's the thing is, I think too many cooks. He bakes the bread too early sometimes, and the other guy was like, "Come on, wait a bit."
I think they both have different kind of strengths, though. The strengths I see Paratici having is his contacts in the game, and how he can get deals over the line, and how he can maybe get players out the door and stuff like that, just with his contacts in various different leagues. Maybe Johan Lange, his kind of strength might be identifying that talent.
Yeah,
and the thing is,
too, of
just quickly, I do apologize to you guys out there, the people using their memberships chats and all. Give me 1 second, just quickly. Look, with Daniel Levy, he's growing the business side of Tottenham. He knows how to milk that. But Scott Munn, I believe, is being brought in to milk the footballing side. How can they make more off the footballing side? New initiatives, growing the women's game, stuff like that. He'll bring that experience in from him doing. I think he was involved in the Australian Olympics committee, stuff like that. So I think he's more brought in on the business side to commercialize more off the footballing side of things on all aspects, rather than actually head recruitment.
I agree. Sorry, just one small second. I agree with that, Dave, but I also think that the people that are coming in now are Scott Munn's guys, and I think he's the one that are going to pick the people that are going to be in those specific roles.
He's a bird's eye view man. I think Scott Munn, he's been here. He's brought in for the bird's eye view sort of decisions. THFC till I die, member for 22 months, sir. One of the Mount Rushmore members, I believe, of this Irish Hotspur. And he says, big up, guys, the best channel around. Big up Shawnee and Ben as well. Come on, you Spurs. We win in the league. Woohoo! And Dave, you sort of brought up earlier, and I don't know if I'm going to call you out on something here, Dave, but you sort of said, we can't let, too much attention be drawn to ourselves here. I feel like you and Tron probably do the best effort of trying to draw the attention, over to us winning the league, because it seems like you and him, you keep telling everybody to believe, keep telling everybody not to rule Spurs out. Which one is it? Do you want people to pay attention to us, or do you want people not to pay attention to us?
No, what I mean by it is, right, by all means believe, but there seems to be a thing lately where you can't talk about maybe some of the things that you might need to improve upon to be able to sustain it or push yourself over the line. So what I say to people is believe, but also understand, that we do need backing in January. We do need reinforcements in January. We can't think that what we've got now is enough to carry us all the way. But, we should believe 100%. I mean, the team's given us every reason to be. All the debates, the discussions, everything else we've had over the last 4 years, everyone, not just us, everyone, every Spurs fan is to get to this point now where we're at. So let's enjoy it. Let's believe we've got what we've asked for, and let's see how far we can take it.
Just quickly,
Dave, I think you've been saying. Sorry, I was just about to say, Dave, I think you've been telling me that Spurs are going to win the league ever since I met you.
Yeah.
Look, Ben,
That's what I thought.
everyone knows the fan I am. At the start of every season, you have a chance of winning the league. Until it's mathematically impossible, then I'll adjust my expectations accordingly.
Dave, can I just ask, is Tron, is that a shortened version of Dermatron?
Yes. How do we not come up with it sooner?
I didn't realize. Amazing shortening.
It's simpler, it's easier. It seems to just match him, so well. Big up, Mr. Tron. Thank you again for 22 months of service. And again, you've been here, I think, longer than I have. One of the Mount Rushmores of this community. And Jim saying as well, big up to you from Just a Guy Who Loves Spurs, says, gents, I never worry about losing a player until it happens. Let's just stay upbeat and get on that pitch and kick the Chelsea arse. I trust Ange. I am 100% chilled. Sean, I've been trying to get you off cloud 9 as much as possible tonight. If Udoji, if you've heard about the injury worries, he's 50-50. Are you a little worried about that going into the Chelsea game? Let's say Udoji isn't available. We have to pick, Emerson or maybe a Ben Davies again. Without
Ben Davies is out.
Not Ben Davies. Even if he wasn't out, I still would want him. I want him to be out on a. I just don't. I think that it's what that. Unfortunately, I know it's wrong to just judge someone on one particular performance.
I have done it. I've done the same thing.
But I think it exposed the inability to play people without pace in this back line. I mean, Roy Hodgson just went, "Oh, Ben Davies is on the team sheet. Okay, just ping everything down the right hand side or their right down our left." And I think Chelsea will do something similar if Ben Davies is in. I can imagine just Sterling having a field day against Ben Davies. So, it is a worry. But I think Emerson Royale, I mean, it's amazing the turnaround. But I think he to play out of position and step up and do what he did second half, I thought was really impressive. So look, it's a match. I think Destiny Udogie for me. If you're going to think, if everyone when they talk about the one injury thing, we're one injury away. Most of the time they talk about the spine, Vicario, one of the defenders, Maddison, Basuma, whatever. I'd make the argument that losing Basuma and having Højbjerg come in is less of a problem than losing Udogie for any meaningful period of time, and having to kind of rely on Emerson or Ben Davies. But then again, not to get off the topic, but Serge Reguilon is back in January, and I don't know what the situation will be with him. We'll have to talk about that another time. But I agree with Jim though. Just I think that Tottenham are going to smash Chelsea on the weekend.
Cowboy.
The thing is, we also have to change our mindset a little bit as well. I do feel like as Tottenham fans, we're always looking for maybe reasons why we can't succeed. And I get it. It comes from a place of hurt, bad decisions, being let down for years upon years upon years. I fully understand it. But if this does maintain up until January, the last thing that needs to change is us as a fan base, that we do need to start believing a lot more in these guys, especially when they're giving you evidence week in, week out on the pitch why you should. So hopefully that can happen.
Absolutely.
If it means Emerson at left back again, Jim, I'll keep the confidence. I don't know if I'll be 100% chilled like yourself, even though I love the Emmer goat. But if it is a Ben Davies, I don't know if I'd be able to stay chilled about it. I think I'll probably end up, losing my mind and, going into it extremely nervous. Like with what Sean said, it's almost like maybe Roy Hodgson just saw the team sheet and it was like, never mind, guys, change tactics. We're just
forget what I said for the last week. Forget the entire week's preparation. From now on, you just ping the ball over the top.
And if that's look at Ben Davies, that worries me. If that's what happens when the moment Udogie leaves the team, that teams are just going to do that. That does worry me.
Like, everyone knows it, though, right? It's not a secret. Everyone across world football, even NS Moura knew it, for fuck's sake. Like, the thing is, Sean says, I don't want to get on him after one game. It's not one game. It's 4 years. Actually, it's longer than that. He's back up under Pochettino. It's 8 years. It's nearly 10 years. Testimonial time. I mean, everyone knows it.
I do think, sorry, Dave, I think that his positional play against Palace was odd. We know he can't get back anyway because he doesn't have the pace. But when we did have the ball, he found himself so far forward before we were ready to progress. He was up there further ahead than Sonny at times, far further ahead than Richarlison. And then when we lost the ball, he had further back to track. So I feel like you need to, if you are going to play him, he needs a little bit more match time, physical match time in the system before you can kind of judge him, because I feel like he was just positionally really poor with the ball, and then it made us have more problems when they put the ball into the back over the top.
I don't know about you guys, but sorry, Sean. I don't know about you guys, but for the last 5-10 minutes of that half, it literally looked like he was just instructed just to stay up the top near the middle and just be a nuisance. And Maddison dropped out the left back for a while, picking up the ball and stuff like that. That's how bad it got.
I think he was injured, though. I think he was injured. That's why he came off at half time.
Don't buy it.
Oh, okay.
Well,
You don't buy it. He's not. He ain't available for this weekend, so
Definitely out.
Hugo Lloris was injured to the
I
back
think
end
so.
of last season. Dyer was injured last season. You see where I'm getting at?
yeah. And there's also plenty others that actually were injured too.
Jim, I like the confidence, my friend, and I do appreciate that. You try to, go into the games, as positive as possible. But I'll be honest, you lose somebody at a left back, and I will start to go into it a little bit more nervous. But big up to you, Jimbo, and really do appreciate the support. And if anybody wants to stop the conversation at any stage, feel free to throw in a super chat to get your opinions in, and we will have a good discussion of it amongst the panel ourselves. Kyle Vineyard, big up to KPV, member for 9 months. Bentoncourt will score the winner against Chelsea on Monday. Then White Hart Lane will be rocking. Come on, you Spurs. It was Skippy last time, Ben. Bentoncourt this time?
I'll take it. I mean, if Bentancur comes on or to score the winner against Chelsea, what a story that is after so long out with an ACL. I'd love to see it. I really would. If I could write the script of this game, that is literally what I would write, for Bentancur to come on and score the winner. But let's hope the game will be wrapped up before he comes on.
I would love to see Lolo grab come into the game, KPV. And Sean made a great point earlier that even, he's actually almost been somebody that we've forgotten about. And we've realized that he's probably one of our best midfielders, and we've been playing without him for the majority of the season. It's like sort of adding on, a superpower, 10 games into the season at this stage. And Bentoncourt would love to see him score. And also as well, KPV, thanks for the 9 months of service, my man. Can't wait to see you celebrating after that Monday game. I think he's headed to the game as well, Mr. KPV is. Steve D.
Benji wants a Stone Cold Stunner, KPV.
I'm ready. I'm waiting.
Steve D, I think he's attempting to type with his eyes closed, or he's maybe listing one of the Conference League teams that we must have come up
that's that
against,
new player we're
in the
signing
past.
from Croatia. I think it's Vescovic's mate.
I think this is the team Anaspira lost to after we lost to them. Actually, this is a team in the Slovenian league. Big up to you, Stevie D. Appreciate you, my man. Hopefully you're all right this evening. And yeah, Dave, he's upset about the red star in his membership badge. So I told him that he might just have to type with his eyes closed for the next month or so until it blows over.
Look, Stevie D, hopefully one of these geniuses below us can, teach us or tell us maybe how to get that red star off that membership thing, my man. I don't know how to do it, brother. I'll have a look though after. I'll look into it.
And then Sweeney Todd, big up to you, Sweeney Todd, grabbing a flat cap membership. Anybody else who wants to join Sweeney Todd, feel free to do so. Plenty of membership videos out there for you. Dave and I will be putting 2, in fact, out tomorrow, our pre-match thoughts, as well as also our fantasy update, and more. I think the trash talk is finally starting to kick into the fantasy. Once you reach 10 games into the season, you start to see who's where in the table, who needs work. And I think Dave is realizing he's got a lot of work to do, Sweeney Todd. So if you have a decent fantasy score so far this season, I'd say feel free to come and join the league and embarrass the rest of us. Big up to you, my friend. And hopefully you enjoy the rest of the membership content. I have another question here for you, and I'll start with Shawnee on Gabbanini's quotes about a certain chairman, Daniel Levy. He had this to say, and he had a lot of glowing words for our chairman, Sean. He said he's one of the smartest men I've ever met. And when you work with Daniel, he's not someone that says, we want to create something, but you have time. Don't worry, guys. He actually wants to win. Do you trust that Gabbanini actually did, in fact, have a positive relationship with Levy, Sean, despite maybe so many former scouts and employees having maybe a different opinion of the guy?
Look, I mean, look,
can we take these as genuine, these quotes?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any reason for him. He's left the club to necessarily tell a different story. But I think he's just speaking his experience, right? And his experience is obviously going to be different to certain people, like depending on the person you are, the relationship that you have with other people. Some people click, some people don't. It's like oil and water. There might be egos involved. Plus, I think that Daniel Levy may have learned from his past. I think that he actually mentioned in the interview that he's learned from his mistakes and he's trying to get better. And I think that, I think that it's fair to say that you shouldn't just take someone for how you meet them once or over a period of time. Everyone's got things in their life or whatever. I'm not making excuses for Daniel Levy's, indiscretions in the past or whatever. I personally don't subscribe to this narrative. I never have since I've been in the community that he is this terrible chairman, this parasite, any of that stuff. I think he's genuinely very good. I just think he does things his way, and I think he likes to, maybe he has control issues. But look, if Gabbanini's relationship with him has been a positive one, then I think it's nice that he's being honest about it, and I don't really see the benefit in him creating a false narrative now that he's left the club. The only argument could be that he's trying to get in his good books for a future return down the track. But I think it's his personal experience, and I think everyone, like I don't know, everyone on this panel, everyone in the chat, you might know someone, or some people will like me, some people won't like me. I'm sure it's the same for the rest of you, right? It's just how people rub off on someone is a unique thing. So I think for Gabbanini, his experience with Daniel Levy was one of respect. One where he appreciated him, and one where he didn't have anything bad to say. And that's cool.
He enjoyed his study abroad with Daniel Levy. He had a good time, and it was all successful. What do you think, Benji? Do you think this is genuine? These quotes from Gabbanini? He even says there, right? In this moment of confusion, I think he's referring to that summer of confusion. He was a master, Daniel Levy, because he was clear in his mind what he wanted. He learned from the past, and he made the changes necessary. I mean, a lot of glowing words for our chairman.
Yeah, I wish that was always the case with Daniel Levy, making the changes necessary and doing all these kind of stuff. Like, I think Gabbanini was lucky that he was here only for a short space of time. And in that short space of time, Daniel Levy has done the right things. So I think, like, I've been one to criticize Daniel Levy very heavily over the past 4 or 5 years. And I think quite rightly so, because he's warranted the criticism that's come his way. But in terms of what you're saying, Sean, about he's got no reason to blow smoke up Levy's ass, I kind of disagree, because in that interview, he literally said he hopes to be back at Spurs in a sporting director role. So he needs to butter up Levy in some way. So maybe that's his way of.
I said that might be, but that's a long plan. If it's 4 or 5 years away, he's playing the long game with the compliments,
Yeah, but he's not going to come out and say anything else. He's going to say only good things about Levy if he's got one eye on still coming back. Look, at the end of the day, I do think Levy has done a good job since Gabbanini and since the summer and the summer recruitment, everything, the manager recruitment, everything. So Daniel Levy needs a pat on the back, and he needs to be given the credit that's due to come his way, because he's done a good job over the summer. But that doesn't take away all the bad decisions and the bad moments that we've had over the past 4 or 5 years. And Gabbanini wasn't around for those moments, so he can only comment on what he's been here for.
And that's what I mean. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? Like 100% is his experience.
Yeah.
And I also think that Gabbanini is someone that's it's been more junior, that found himself, because of circumstance, promoted into a senior role, and probably really, like, just on a personal level, just absolutely loved the opportunity to step up and rise up, and therefore appreciated the experience of working closely with someone as successful, as wealthy, as impressive, that maybe he hadn't come across before. So I think that all of those things factor into it. And I take your point, Ben. Maybe he is, playing his cards right for a future return to the club.
See, Sean, I'm sure you know very much about playing the long game.
I kind of disagree with you, Ben.
A sly little inside joke that I've got to figure out now over the next 10 minutes.
So many. I'm losing track, Sean. I'm losing track. I kind of have to disagree with you slightly, Ben, though, that he would be sort of having to say something nice about Levy, because at the end of the day, he wasn't given that promotion that he sort of wanted. So I felt like he would be sort of genuine about it. I mean, he's all the way across in Italy, like he's halfway across, the Europe. So he could, have a few sly digs if he wanted to, but
he said he wanted to come back as a sporting director
because he had such a great time working with Levy.
Yeah. 100%.
So I feel like maybe it's genuine then. Maybe he did have a great time.
I don't think it wasn't genuine, because I think that the time that he was here, like I said, has been a positive moment for the club. But the fact of the matter is that he's not going to say anything otherwise than that, because he's had a positive experience. But you also got to take into account that everything else that Daniel Levy has done wrong in the past 5 years. Gabbanini can't comment on that because he wasn't here for it. So he's going to say positive things.
This is true. But so there was a former...
It's sincere.
Pardon?
So you agree it's sincere then?
I agree it's sincere coming from his point, but I think when you're going to ask the fans, like, if it's the right thing to say, then maybe over the short space of time, then yes, it is the right thing to say. But fans have a lot of a longer memory than Gabbanini.
Dave, are Gabbanini's quotes genuine?
Look, I think they're genuine based off the time that he spent here. The time that he spent here, we've generally been sort of in a good situation, right? But look, there is an element of not wanting to burn his bridges. You know, in football, there's only so many top-level football clubs you can go to if you want a career, right? So, you know, there is an element of not burning his bridges. But I think they're genuine in regard to, you know, time that he spent around them. You know, if he would have been here, you know, under Steve Hitchen and stuff like that, would there be the same quotes coming out? I'm not so sure. You know, we've heard Paul Barber on TalkSport, you know, speak a little bit differently. So maybe it's based on the time that he's been here.
100%.
The period that he's been here.
Yeah, I personally feel like if he's had such a short time here at Spurs, he's either going to have a great experience or he's going to have a pretty terrible experience. He's not been here long enough that he can even have really much of a mixed review, I think, about it. And for the most part, he was sort of given, you know, a crash course on how to be a director of football, and he was successful in it. So he was sort of going to always, I think, have kind of glowing sort of reputation, you know, at least for Spurs, because they gave him that chance in that moment of chaos to sort of lead them out of it. He was successful in it. He learned a lot from it. And then he also felt like, you know, Daniel Levy, compared to a lot of other former scouts and former recruitment officials, felt like Daniel Levy, he said, didn't get in his way too much, or they didn't clash heads, or they didn't have any sort of real conflict of any kind, which is very different to what we usually hear from former sort of scouts and officials, right? Even just recently, that guy from TalkSport came on and had a lot of things about Daniel Levy and how he sort of meddles and things. And, you know, Gabbanini sort of indicated that, yeah, Levy took a very hands-on approach with the summer, but he seemed to have no problem with it. In fact, called him the smartest guy he's ever worked with in terms of the chairman. So, you know, definitely.
I wonder how many chairmen he's worked with, though. That's the only.
How many times have you heard, you know, them call Daniel Levy the smartest guy? You know, it's
Watford, Udinese, I think, was his previous clubs, wasn't it?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But Watford and Udinese had the same chairman, right?
Yeah, those same owners, the Bozzo family. Look, you know, the part I'd be looking in on, you know, where he says, you know, Daniel Levy has learned lessons from before, you know, so, you know, let's see if that continues this January, you know, if he can continue to learn from his mistakes. That's all we ever ask of anybody, you know, learn from your mistakes and move forward. So, you know, that's the part I'd be focusing on.
Yeah, definitely. Jim is saying, gents, as a person who loves coming into rooms like this one, to hear people like Dave and Sean speak like you are is a breath of fresh air. I absolutely love it. Jimbo, thank you for your support, my man. And at least myself and Dave, we try to be as, you know, kind of reasonable as possible, but we do usually kind of, you know, end up landing at delusion land at some stage with a lot of our opinions. At least me, myself, I can get a little, you know, full of it when we definitely are, you know, feeling confident. But I just enjoy, you know, kind of just having these conversations with, you know, kind of fellow sort of guys in this community, and feel like we always get some sort of, you know, thing out of it. We always get to feel like there's something that, you know, maybe we can have our opinions changed on, or some sort of new perspective from it. And we not tear each other apart or anything like that. And during this time at Spurs, it's just a good time to just be having these conversations. It's nowhere near as kind of as chaotic as it used to be. That's for sure. Big up to you, Jimbo. Anything to say there, Dave?
Yeah, look, I've had 4 years of giving out about this team. You know, Ben's sick of hearing me giving out about this team. Sean's sick of hearing me giving out about this team. I'm sure you are at this point, Jack, and everyone else out there. So, you know, it's just good to be at a point where we can talk about our club in a positive light. You know, before recruitment was wrong, you know, management decisions, or you know, decisions that Levy was making and stuff like that were wrong. Now every decisions we seem to be making are right. So, you know, long may it continue. I like being in this space.
And then Al Ben saying, who else can't wait for the red AA, the off of our kit? And I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's any sponsor really to me. Is it the worst sponsor we've had? I enjoyed the HP sponsorship. I will say I kind of liked that one. That was a fun one for me. But Benji, do you have any strong opinions about the AA?
Yeah, look, I never liked seeing red on our kit, and it's been here way too often since the Thompson days, the AIA, the Mansion. Every sponsor we get seems to be predominantly red. So I would like to see a nice little navy sponsor, or basically any other color but red. But as long as we're winning, couldn't really care less, to be honest.
Maybe the AIA is lucky this time of year. Sean, favorite sponsor ever?
Ooh. I never used to like the Thompson one because it had the smile on it. And when I put on weight when I was younger, the smile turned upside down around my belly. That's my least favourite one.
Those kits were really skin tight as well, weren't they?
Skin tight as well. Yeah, they weren't made for people like me. And
you sound like Man
I
United
think
now.
my favourite one was probably. I liked the kits that we had when we had Mansion. I liked that, but that brown and gold one. But I think you have to go all the way back to Holston back in the 90s for me. That's my favourite sponsor, I think.
A lot of Holstons in the chat.
Sean, when we had Holston, did you drink a lot of Holston?
Not back in the 90s, mate. I was about 10. Yeah. Well, maybe I had a few. I started early. Holston was more of like a darker beer, like an ale, wasn't it? It was quite heavy. Yeah, it wasn't really my favorite, to be honest.
Sounds up my alley, actually.
Spurs is the only place I've seen someone have a Holston before. I've never seen anyone ever anywhere else have a Holston.
Yeah, I don't think so either, to be honest. I've never seen it.
Not surprised that, the best sponsorship, Al, would be one of a beer. It's usually one that usually kind of, brings everybody together. That's for sure. But big up to you, Al, Ben. Hopefully you're all right this evening, my friend. Thanks for the support. We're going to move on to the last question of this evening, everyone. And it is the one that is on the title. We have been given by Charlie Eccleshare of The Athletic today, has revealed some of our January transfer plans, which could include a center back and potentially a left wing or a striker. That's how I sort of read it, maybe one or the other. Is this maybe enough, though, to sustain a title challenge if we are still in it around January time? Ben, is that enough for you, center back and left wing striker?
Yeah, I think that, and including a replacement for Højbjerg, Lo Celso if they go as well. So I think it would be, to be honest, because I think centre back we desperately need cover 100%. So that's a necessity. We're talking about before in the show about how our attacking play is not at its most fluid moment, and I think we do need additions in that front three, and probably a left winger is probably the most desperate out of the three. So if we can bring in someone like good cover, like a Lloyd Kelly, Tosin Adarabioyo, or maybe even if we really want to push that out the boat, maybe like any of those Leverkusen defenders. They've got three top defenders there at Leverkusen, so literally I'll take any of them in at Spurs. So one of those guys, a left winger like a Jota, or there's so many names bandied about, but I think Jota, who's worked with Postecoglou before to a really high level at Celtic, and he knows exactly what it takes to be in an Ange system. I think if we can get one of those and a replacement for Højbjerg or thing, I do think it's enough, to be honest.
To push back on you, though, does Jota, not the player specifically, but is he maybe more of somebody that helps with the creativity, not as much the goal scoring? Or do you think he would be somebody that could help with a bit of the goal scoring?
Well, I think creativity is also a big problem, to be honest, in this front three, and I think that we need, because I don't think we've been that creative in the past 4 games or whatever it may be, like Luton game aside in the first 15 minutes. So I think we are struggling to create as much as Ange wants us to create. So I do think we need a creator on that left-hand side. And I think he can chip in with the goals as well. So I think he can do both facets of the game.
Shawnee, Charlie Eccleshare, he says center back, left wing striker. Is this a surprise to you? Is this much of a bombshell of, kind of the targets? Do they make sense?
They do make sense. As we spoke earlier about a left back, as I do think that there is work to do there, but maybe that's something you kick the can until the summer and you just hope and pray that nothing significant happens to Udogie. But you know what, though, guys? Udogie's got that frame, that stature. Like most big, sturdy, tall, fast, strong, physically heavy fullbacks, they normally have, over the course of their career, they suffer from a lot of injuries. Like you think of like Reece James at Chelsea. I hope that it hasn't happened yet with Udogie, and I hope it won't happen. But I do think that there's work to be done there. But I don't think that we're going to do anything because we're going to have, like I say, Reguilon and Ben Davies and Sessegnon's coming back soon. So I'd imagine that we're, fully stacked in that scenario, in that situation, as unfortunate as that sounds. Centre back 100% couldn't, and whoever we get in that role, I don't think we're going to get someone that's in here to compete with Van der Ven or Romero, just someone who's, a level up from what we have. But I just want to make sure that whoever that player is, that they are fast. Because I think that the requirement, I think we spoke about it before, Dave, on this earlier this week. If you were to push Van der Ven to left back in a scenario and bring in an Adarabioyo or whoever else it would be, then you suddenly Van der Ven's doing fullback duties positionally, and then you don't have anyone to get back and make those ridiculously pacey tackle track backs like he's been doing. And at the top end of the pitch, I agree with Ben. I think it's probably better to go for a winger because as much as I think that I'd love to see someone like Santiago Jimenez come in, I'd love to see someone, whoever it is, if we can get a 9, I do think we need a 9. But I think you create a set of problems for yourself if you bring in a 9 in that if you pay up for it and you get someone who's here for the future and a big player, then what do you do with Sonny? Like you're not going to drop Sonny. He's our captain. But he's at 9 goals in the Premier League this season, second highest Premier League scorer. Are you going to push him back to left wing where he's more ineffectual than he is in the 9? Do you bring in a guy to compete but not to start? I think that next season you're going to be playing 55, 60 games, hopefully. And so you're going to have more justification for rotation and all that stuff. But right now, I think the sales pitch to a Jimenez is far easier if you're Chelsea than it is if you're Tottenham. At Chelsea, they just say, look, you're the final piece of the puzzle, guy. Look how much we're creating. We just haven't got anyone to put it in the back of the net. Chelsea are doing things. Well, we're going to figure it out. At Tottenham, convincing someone to come in who's not necessarily going to play second. But I don't even know if it's the right thing to do because you're then going to push Sonny out to the left. And I don't think Sonny's anywhere as good on the left-hand side. So I'd rather get someone who's a utility player, a bit of versatility, can play a little bit of everywhere. But ultimately, priority being someone who can take players on from the left-hand side. Because I think that at the moment we're using Richarlison and Decky, and they're too similar in as much as they're both strong, hold up ball carriers. But they're not players that really want to drive at the defense. And that, for me, is one of the weaker areas of our system. So I want to see someone run at players with tricky...
or that threaten behind, really. I mean, Richie has it more than Decky for sure, but it's not always. There are other players that should have a bigger threat in behind for sure.
Yeah, you know who I'd love to see come in. The only thing that kind of sways me away from him is the injury record, because I think that's a massive worry. But if he can put those injuries behind him, I think Pedro Neto would be absolutely perfect for us. I think Pedro Neto is one of the best, if not the best winger outside of the top 6.
He's got another hamstring injury, Ben, right? That's
the problem. No, that's what I'm saying. I know that's the problem.
Once your hammy goes, it's always going to go. So I think that you're only ever going to get like 50% of a season. It's like you don't hear about someone that's had a bad hamstring injury once.
Yeah,
you don't hear about that. You hear about them being reoccurring injuries.
Yeah,
Spurs medical department do need a friend, and maybe Pedro Neto could be one of them. Though I do love him.
But what a player, man!
He's exactly what we would need because he works on both wings. He can score goals, create goals, whip in a very good cross on either side too, right? And that's what I think makes him different to most wingers is that he can sort of do the same job on both sides. He's not really like a different player on one side versus the other side, like I think a lot of sort of wingers are these days. Dave, for you, is this satisfactory with Charlie Eccleshare has brought up today? Center back, left wing, and a striker?
Yeah, for me, it sounds about right, Jack. I think, look, first of all, we need the reinforcements, right? It'll make all the difference come May. So we definitely need to get the reinforcements. We also have to remember you're losing Son to the Asian Cup. You're losing Basuma and Sarr to AFCON as well. So again, backs up why we need reinforcements. But look, what I will say is there's a lot of players around the squad currently who do not contribute and who's, and they have been given opportunities, right? Whether it being off the bench or the Carabao Cup game against Fulham. The reason why they haven't got any more since is because of what they've done against Fulham, a lot of them. So, and also a lot of these guys, their contracts are coming up as well over the next 2 years. There's a few out come the summer, so I hesitate a bit that they'll be sort of trying to push them out in January to create a bit of space in the squad. For instance, you've got 3 goalkeepers coming up: Hugo Lloris, Forrester, Brandon Austin, all up next summer. Now I hazard a bet we won't do anything really in that area until the summer. I think we'll see it out with Fraser Forrester and Brandon Austin, and maybe Hugo Lloris move on in January. When it comes to centre-back, Eric Steyer's contract's up in the summer. I hazard a guess that the club are going to try and force him out the door in January to try and take a fee for him before he can leave for free, over the summer. Now, he can negotiate with clubs across Europe if he wants and sign on a free contract, but I hazard a guess the club will try and force him out the door in January, because even if he agrees with a team around Europe, they might ask him, do they want to pay a small fee to get that deal done early? So that frees up a spot at centre-back then. And when I look at it, We do have a homegrown issue coming up that still isn't sorted. The academy will only push you a certain part of the way, but we will need to add some senior pros to that homegrown list because of some of the contracts that are up over the next 2 years are homegrown players. And it's an area that I've argued for years has been one of the weakest areas in our squad. We have some of the worst homegrown players across the Premier League. So when I look at what's available in January, I think you're looking at a Lloyd Kelly or you're looking at an Adore Bayo. Come January, they've got 6 months left on their contract. They both qualify for the homegrown status. So I reckon you'll see Tottenham go and approach one of them maybe at centre-back. Left wing striker sounds about right as well because Perisic, his contract is up in the summer, but there was rumours that he's on his way to Croatia in January. So that'll be him going, which frees up another spot there. So left wing maybe / striker sounds about right, depending on what Spurs want to do, depending whether Ange Postecoglou feels like he's got enough cover on the left, or depending on what he sees Richarlison as a left winger or a striker. But for me, I would like to go for a striker. Because I think the winger situation, I think we've got more than enough to sort out. Like I said earlier on, I think injuries have sort of really hampered why we haven't got that right. I think we will get it right. But the reason why I say a striker is because when Harry Kane was out injured or we missed him, Sonny stepped up and scored the goals. Now that Sonny's the main guy, who's going to step up and score them when he's gone? There was a lot made this summer that, everyone chip in with 10 to 15 goals. And, that's what Arsenal were able to do last season. But, coming up to this January transfer window, we've shown that others maybe can't do that. So I do, and with Son gone to the Asian Games, we know he's going to be missing a few games. So I would be looking at bringing in another striker. And I hear what Sean's saying about what do you do with Son then? But for me, when I look at it, the intention was never for Sonny to be a striker. Kane left just before the season. Richarlison started out the season up front. But because he wasn't doing the job that we needed to do, and the ball was breaking down at his feet every time, Postecoglou adjusted and moved Son into the middle. But let's not kid ourselves. Bar last season, Son was scoring these goals off the left-hand side bar last season. So for me, if you do bring in another striker, why can't you put him back out there to do the same thing?
I just think it's his lack of willingness.
But,
I think it's the same thing with Richarlison and Decky. And, I haven't seen Brennan Johnson do the kind. I mean, Brennan Johnson at Nottingham Forest was a different sort of player that played on the break, played in behind. I don't really think, absent Perisic or Manor Solomon, and even Manor Solomon basically likes to play off the left, kick the ball half a yard to his right-hand side and try and find the corner, same as Sonny. But I don't think we have a player who wants to run at defenders. I just want to throw a quick name out there for you. I don't know if you guys fancy this one, but there's a guy, Pedro Gonçalves. I know he signed an extension to his contract.
I was about to say him, Charlie. That'd be the guy I'd bring in.
He's such a, Ange loves utility. Ange loves versatility. This guy can play left wing, right wing, central midfielder. He's played DM before. He plays attacking midfielder. He plays second striker. I think he scored something like 50 goals and assists contributions in 65 games off the left. 50 goal assist contributions in 60 games off the right. He scored 40, or again, GA 35 in 50 from playing central midfield. This guy is a creative goal contributing machine wherever he plays. And all you got to do is speak to Pedro Porro and say, Mr. Prison Officer, can you have a little word to your inmate over in Sporting?
Former inmate. Yeah.
And get this guy over, because I think he would solve so many. Doesn't matter. Wherever there's an injury, Pedro.
Didn't he absolutely score a worldie against Arsenal last season?
Yeah, absolute worldie against Arsenal as well. I just think that guy, and he's only, according to transfer market, he's only worth 30 million euros. So I don't know where that valuation comes from, but
I think you're talking about 60 minimum for him, I reckon.
Yeah, I agree.
With him, he solves a lot of problems, right? He can fill in for Maddison's creativity. He can fill in on either wing, and he can also play false nine as well if needed. But, this is what I'm saying. I wouldn't be adverse to looking at a striker and pushing some back out on the left, When everyone was talking about selling Harry Kane, it was like we need players that can play all across the front three. So why are we now so focused on keeping Sonny up front when we spoke about flexibility and everything else before that in the last transfer window? So for me, we should be looking at Son. If we do sign another striker, why can't we put Son back out on the left? Because like I said, he was scoring all them goals before last season. Last season was an anomaly. So I don't think we should be adverse to it. But also left back.
Yeah. Sorry, make your point.
Yeah, no, just quickly, I was going to say, I think the reason why left back's not on the list is I think Reguilon comes back in January and is back up to a doji.
Yeah.
But for me, Dave, I think players, all top players, right, all elite players, as they get older, they find solutions how to deal with their age and how to deal with their changing body and, you know, growing up and everything like that. And I think Sonny, I don't think his best position is out on the left wing anymore. I think his best position, he's the most clinical player, clinical striker even in the league right now. And I think you want that in and around the 6-yard box. You want that as the number 9. And I think he is the best player for us to be in the number 9. And I think that we need to buy players that can keep feeding him. But
what are we going to do if he goes to the Asian Cup or gets an injury? Who are you going to feed?
Yeah, 100%. We need to bring through a Levy or someone like that. We need to think of other options that we can have. It's the same old story when we had Harry Kane, right? When Harry Kane was injured, we moved Son into there. We need to find different kind of solutions.
And that's the thing. We need to find that solution for Sonny. But right now, we don't have it.
We brought in Alejo Veliz. Why not use him?
Yeah. There seems to be a divide, though, that...
I don't think he's ready, personally.
No, sorry. Go on, Jack.
I think there seems to be a divide amongst sort of the fan base that it seems to be goals. We want somebody that can contribute to goals, but do we want to put someone that sort of directly sort of plays in the striker position, or do we want someone that we know can sort of play a variety of positions, but maybe still contribute goals? And there is a risk, I think, with either or. I think with one, you know, you are potentially moving Sonny out of where he's playing already great and he's scoring a lot of goals from, and then moving him over to a different position where you're hoping that, yeah, he just produces the same sort of rate. But then you're also, you know, guaranteeing that the guy that you're bringing in also has to be able to produce the goods. And if he doesn't, then you're almost moving Sonny over for no reason. And then if you bring in someone like, I think Pedro G everybody loves, but let's just say we bring in somebody that is sort of supposed to be doing what we're talking about with Pedro Gonçalves. Like, he can contribute with goals in any position, but let's say he doesn't really find a position in this system that really suits him to really be able to contribute at a regular rate. And I think that's where both answers, I think, can be correct, but both can also maybe not go so well, because it's all about, I think, trying to replenish the goals if they go missing at some stage. But, you know, is the player that we bring in, you know, really going to be able to fit the system or fit the position? And, you know, can he just slot straight in? And that's the worry. And that I don't really know if I want to move Sonny over if the guy that we bring in doesn't actually end up scoring as many goals as we need him to. And if, let's say, we bring in a big striker, Dave, for example, you know, is that player really straight away in January going to be available? I don't know. Like, there's only so many guys that are going to be available that we can bring in through the number 9 position that can be able to get the goals that you're really truly talking about. And the same thing with Pedro Gonçalves. Like, I don't think Pedro Gonçalves is going to be available in January. That's far more of kind of a summer type target as well. So that's the confusing thing, is if you're going to try to add goals into the team, what sort of player is going to be available in January that's going to be able to add goals to the team?
Out and out strikers, though, Jack, are so in such high demand right now. So many big teams are looking for a 9. They're in such short supply. You're looking at Santiago Jimenez. Now, he's a player that I personally do believe will make the jump from the Dutch league, but there's a never-ending stream of players that have smashed absolute goals, like absolute almost records in the Dutch league, that have come over that haven't done it. At Tottenham, Steven Bergwijn didn't really land. Vincent Janssen didn't land at all, right? But I personally think that Jimenez has got what it takes, but it's another risk. And someone like him, you're not going to get him for Dutch money. You're going to get him for ready-made, prolific striker money, because Feyenoord know that there's Chelsea or Arsenal. Whoever doesn't get Ivan Toney will be looking somewhere else. Real Madrid, if they get Kylian Mbappe, then maybe PSG are going to be looking somewhere else. Like Manchester United might want to go again. There's so many teams that are going to be looking for a 9 that that you're not going to be able to get players that are kind of a punt for kind of available money, especially in January, just because of the circumstances of January. So for me, you know, you said, are we going to be able to get Gonçalves? Pedro Porro was a mainstay in Sporting Lisbon in January. It took all month in order to convince Sporting to get the job done. But I think the Sporting chairman, if you know, that they run an incredibly tight ship. I was speaking to this guy who came around to fix my internet.
Portuguese
who was a massive
Levy.
Sporting fan. Yeah, but they have like incredible tight wage structures, really interesting kind of financial systems in place in Sporting. If Tottenham or someone else was to come in and pay whatever that number is, I think that the chairman would be forced by the members of the fan committee that own part of the club to recognize that value and liquidate.
That could have been
you know?
contingent on a release clause. I agree with you, Shawnee, but I think that could have been also contingent on the fact that Pedro Porro had that release clause, which sort of got us into the door, I think, in the first place, into this negotiation. So I'm not denying that there isn't going to be any sort of top level goal scorer available in January, but I feel like it'd be more likely the case in that there's some sort of release clause that you can trigger, or there maybe their
He's got a release
contracts,
clause
their
as well.
contracts maybe up in like a year or something like that. So maybe, you know, they take the big money now instead of losing money in the summer, sort of type of thing. That's where it always feels like in January. And we only know, you know, what sort of deals can be available. It always feels more opportunistic in January than really just like, I want this guy, we're going to get him. And it never really happens, I think, in January that most clubs are able to do that.
Pedro
80 million
Conchavez has a
euros.
release clause as well, like 70 million pounds or something like
There
that,
you go.
whatever
Yeah.
it may be. But
There's our doorway in.
You
if we
got
really want
you
him.
got to think about it. Every club from around Europe, apart from like the big boys, are all selling clubs. And if the price is right, you can get anyone from any of those teams.
Yep.
Mhm.
And the thing is, we created the issue, so it's up to us to go and fix it. You know, at the end of the day, we created it. You know, whether Kane wanted to leave or not, we set the deadline so close to the season that we didn't really give ourselves a chance to recover from it. So this
We
January,
should have the money, Dave,
we'll put it
right?
Huh?
We should have the money. I think if you include the Harry Kane money and you discount Decky and Porro because they were factored into previous windows, I think we spent net 30 million quid or something ridiculously low in the summer for Ange's big debut into the season. I think there should be the money available to go and do a deal. The problem with release clauses, I think that there's no obligation for the selling club to accept it on, you know, protracted payments, installments. I think they can demand that you pay it all up front, which might be an issue. But anyway, I think he would be just an absolute game changer for Tottenham. I think you could just slot him into anywhere. It's not even a shoehorn. It's just a perfect player that can play in 4 or 5 different positions and create what we need.
Would you prefer him over like someone like Eze?
I think so.
Yeah,
I would.
I think so. I've been a big
someone
fan
like
of
Eze
Pedro,
also hits that English quota that we desperately need as well.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, this is also true. I personally think that is something that Spurs have been thinking about for a while, though, like how little talent they actually have in the homegrown areas. I think that's why we ended up spending more than what we usually would in the case of Brennan Johnson, is because they have a bit of an emergency situation sort of over there with the lack of homegrown talent. And Eze absolutely fills and, you know, helps that a lot more. I just, you know, since kind of the days of the flat cap Euro Talk, I do miss, you know, kind of Pedro G and, you know, being able to check in on that guy. Cause, you know, even after that first, I think it was like right after we bought Carlos Vinicius, you know, he had, you know, he was the next top goal scorer in, I believe, like the Primera Liga, and he scored something like 24, 25 goals. And, you know, in the Primera Liga, as like, I think at the time he was actually playing on the right wing. And that just shows
something like 100 in his last 100 appearances in the Portuguese league. He has something like 75 GA, something like that. It's something absolutely insane over the last 3 seasons. It's just bonkers how good that guy is.
You did say too that the Eredivisie, right, has a less of a proven track record with players making the transition over. But from what we can tell, a lot of Premier League players, Portuguese league players, have no problem coming over to the Premier League for whatever reason that is. So he's actually in a weird way almost less of a risk than maybe others are out there. But unless anybody has any, Dave.
Yeah, last thing. I know a lot of people maybe are, you know, mentioning the likes of Elise, and I get it. But if you've watched the under-21 games, it's clear to see that he ain't ready in all aspects of the game to be able to come in and do what we need him to do and hit the ground running and pick up the slack for Sonny.
He's only played one game, hasn't he?
Prolific player until he was 24, 25, you know, 26 years of age. To expect Felice to come in and be that prolific straight away, it's a big gamble. Felice scored the other night, but the rest of his game, he was anonymous. He didn't really do much whatsoever. He came on, you know, before that, he had 4 chances, 4 one-on-ones, and hit every single one of them straight at the goalkeeper. The point is, his all-round game is not ready to come in and hit the Premier League, hit the ground running. That's why Postecoglou said at the start of the season with this guy, you have to be patient with him. You know, you're not really going to see.
He's a monster aerial threat, right? When he was playing for in Argentina, I mean, I'm sure most of us saw his highlight reel. The vast majority of the awesome things he did was with his head. Yeah. And we have a squad now that without Perisic doesn't know how to cross the ball. You know, it's the same struggle that Richarlison has. When Richarlison was being played,
he only scores in the air.
Only scores in the air, and if you're not putting the ball in the air, then it's a bit of a damp squib. And so I think you need, I agree with Dave 100%, but it's nice to think that he's training well and he's getting rewarded with a few minutes late on in games. And obviously at the point when he comes on, most of the creative outlet has come off with Sonny and Maddison. So I'm not judging him on what he's done in the Premier League, but I think that it's far, far too early to be putting any more responsibility on his shoulders personally.
Have we given up on the Gift Orban idea? I mean, his goals have completely dried up since the summer.
To be fair to the kid, though, it's just a random tangent. Like, I think there was any opinion on Gift Orban was actually acceptable because he really was just such a flavor of the week, type of striker because he was just in such fine form. But for a guy that has really only just blown up in the last year, he's done a very good job of it. It's almost like a FIFA career mode of some kind where he's just in the span of a year, he just couldn't stop scoring. And then now, he's going through a bit of a reality check where, eventually they have to stop scoring.
He'll be,
finally
I don't necessarily think I think it was probably right that no Premier League club, or it's telling that no Premier League club took a risk on him. But I think that right now, I think because I think remember last season, I think he spent half of the season still playing in Denmark or Norway, whichever league it was, Nordjylland or something. And then it was only in January when he went to Ghent that so he's only played 6 months in the Belgium league, and he still carried on, but that's not a massive sample size.
No,
I still think you'll see him. Eventually, I think in a year or two, year's time, whatever, he'll get a good move somewhere. But I think I definitely trigger happy on my waxing lyrical about this guy and all throughout the summer. It was a good source of transfer.
I was banging his drum like I've never banged anyone's drum before with him.
Yeah.
But
shamelessly,
it is shameless.
A player who maybe has slipped our minds a little bit is the kid from Lyon, Ryan Cherky. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but Lyon are bottom of the league in France at the moment. Maybe it's an opportunity to go and get someone like that.
Let me ask you about him, because he's been a name that's been around for the last 3-4 years. But no one's really pulled the trigger on him.
He's only 20.
I think there's a reason behind that, and that's because he's been labeled with sort of attitude problems and things like that outside of the scene. And also, he's been known since he was 16 years of age. And like you said, no one's gone after him. And also, a bunch of other players at Lyon have left instead of him. He also isn't playing right now for Lyon, despite them being at the bottom of the table. And that's also for, I think, decent reasons, and that he seems to have some issues of whatever kind. And he really hasn't done all that much, if you actually look at it, in the last couple or few years. So he's sort of I don't know. He's one of those, who's that, American guy or the Chicago Fire guy, or I don't know. He's just one of those 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
Freddie Adu.
Freddie Adu. I don't know if that's harsh, but I think he's had a bit of a he had a really great 2 years when he was ridiculously young, and everybody got really behind it, but he hasn't done a lot since. Sort of maybe a bit of a Martin Odegaard was sort of like that for a while. He hadn't done anything for a long time after he blew up, at 16, and then it took him a long time until he hit the form that he did with Arsenal. But I don't know, maybe a similar situation.
In the bottom of that Gabbanini article, he was saying that one of the things that Ange Postecoglou prioritizes is understanding not just the player but the person, and he spends a lot of time trying to understand the kind of psyche or the personality of the guy. And it's mind-blowingly refreshing to hear and to know that now when the scouts, when they're given the task to go and find players, part of their homework is to figure out whether the guy's got a workable personality, whether they're likely to succumb to the too much too soon thing, or the fame, whatever, the fortune. So hopefully no more Ndombele's are going to pass through Tottenham's wage bill.
Scary to think that we were accusing the club of that sort of thing in the past as well, that if we were feels like they don't do their due diligence or their homework on the background of these guys, and then it turns out that in Gabbanini's quotes that was true, we weren't doing that. And since he came in with Paratici and the others, they started changing that around, and that's why we've all of a sudden fallen in love with every single player at the club now, because they actually are good guys that we can get behind and seem to have the right attitudes. It really doesn't seem to be rocket science, but I guess it is. Al Ben saying, could Vlahovic be an option? He's big, he's tall, he's strong, Dave, and he is an itch. He has all of the categories that you could need. I mean, I know
3 boxes.
He's your candidate, I believe. You've mentioned him lots of times.
Look, I really like Vlahovic. What I've seen of the player at Fiorentina, I absolutely really liked. And I think when I look at the guy, he's got all the attributes to become, a Haaland, a Harry Kane-esque sort of striker. Now, I know a lot of people say what's happened to him at Juve, but Juve's had a lot of problems. He ain't the problem. Let's not start making him the problem. They've had a bit of a fall off from grace. Sorry, Shani?
Allegri's football doesn't suit him either. So
yeah, exactly. So for me, I think it's just a great player at the wrong club. That guy is suited for the Premier League, in my opinion. So let's get him over.
Yeah. Yeah,
I like big number nines. Is that what we would want if we were bringing in a striker, a big number 9, or are we, more just concerned about the goals?
He's not got blistering pace or anything though. He's not sluggish, but I wouldn't say he's.
I think he's fast. I thought.
Yeah, he's not. I wouldn't say. Well,
he's not Erling Haaland fast for a big guy.
Certainly not Erling Haaland fast. Yeah. But he's a really talented player. I really like him. I completely agree with Dave. I think the Fiorentina system, a bit more similar to ours. Juve under Allegri was more like kind of Conte ball a little bit. It was very, just doesn't suit that kind of player for me. And I think that it'd be interesting. But I personally think that he's probably that sort of tier of like where he's probably going to want to go to one of the teams who sell one of their players to Real Madrid. Or I think there's going to be a bit of a merry-go-round of certain players moving. I'd be surprised if Juve will let him go for anything less than some serious money. So I'm happy for him to come in, but I don't think it will happen.
Last thing I sort of want to highlight is I know there's a lot of pushback on me saying we want a striker because I get it, right? Everyone wants Son to be the main man, and I'm not opposed to that. But we do need someone to chip in his absence. We need to find someone. But also, we can't forget, Son's 31, 32 years of age. So we have to be looking at another striker anyway for the future. Richarlison ain't going to cut it. Belize ain't going to, in my opinion, won't be ready by the time Son's on the decline. So we shouldn't be so naive just to say we don't need a striker. We do. You have to look beyond Sonny as well. He's 31, 32. He ain't getting any younger. Them goals, that yard of pace that he has now, that'll all dry up. So would
you go someone a bit lower level, like an Awonyi or something from Nottingham Forest? Any interest in this?
I like him, I really like him.
Yeah.
I think we just like pushing back against you, Dave. I think that's all it is.
We should just push the boat out for Yusuf Moukoko from Borussia Dortmund. 18-year-old, has had top-level experience, and he'll, let him bed in while Heung-min Son's getting older.
Yeah, and he's not being played as much as I think supposedly he would like over at Dortmund, so I was told by the Germans. Big up to you, Al Ben. Hopefully you're all right, and thank you for the support this evening, my man. And also everybody else that's joined us this evening. I think we might wrap it up there. Hit the like button, please. Get your comments in to thank the boys for giving up their time this evening, as well as ourselves, for putting all the questions together. But I think we'll leave it there. And Shawnee, what's coming up on the channel? Let me find one of the links that I put in there.
Yeah,
while I'm doing
there it is. There.
Sean, what's coming up on Spurs Talk Show, sir?
I'm trying to up the content. I'm trying to put out 2 videos a day because usually I just do the one at like 10, 11 o'clock UK time. But I've found recently that because of the Australian interest in Ange and American interest in football, I feel like now you can put a video out at like midnight and it still gets seen by a few people. So I'm trying to kind of put a bit more content out. But yeah, Spurs Talk Show. You get my daily walks with Bugsy when the storm's not happening. It's Bugsy's birthday today, by the way. Everyone to wish her a happy birthday. And and then a couple of live streams a week. And usual stuff. Spurs Talk Show is where you can find me. Thanks for the invite tonight, guys. Really enjoyed the chat. It's been a good one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it tonight, lads.
And Benji, Weird Tom TV, thanks for giving up your time this evening. Anything that's coming up over on the channel?
No, thanks for having me on. It's been a long time coming. Haven't been on the show for a while now, but it's good to be back. You've got all the usual stuff on We Are Tottenham. You can find me and my brother talking about everything Spurs related every single day. We've also got a couple of other channels that we've started in recent times as well, which is On the Ball, which we cover everything outside of Tottenham. And we've also got a third channel, which it's just blown away the support we've had for it over the past couple of days. But we've started a Korean channel. We've started a Korean channel.
Yeah, can you pronounce the name of it?
No, I can't. But if you, I can't pronounce the name of it. But it's basically a lot of our content on We Are Tottenham repurposed for the South Korean market, and the numbers that we've had on that since opening it like a week ago or less than a week ago, it's just unbelievable. So I want to thank everyone for showing the support.
Wow. There you go. Shout out.
No, absolutely love it. And look, last thing I'll say is, everyone, please get over and check out these two great guys in the community. Check out their channels, everything they have to say. They love Spurs just as much as you guys out there. So make sure you get over and check them out. I also want to show my appreciation to you three on the panel. I really enjoyed it. Actually, really good conversation there. Really enjoyed it. Something else we didn't even get into. We want to talk about the Aston Villa, scouting department being decimated, but we'll get into that properly maybe on another day or maybe next week. But really, thank you guys on the panel and everyone else out there for tuning in. A massive thank you to you guys. Really do appreciate it. These shows are absolutely nothing without you tuning in, liking, subscribing, super chatting, all that good stuff. Especially thanks to Dermotron, to Jim, to KPV, to Stevie D, to new member Sweeney Todd. Make sure you get involved in everything we've got going on, my man, and Al Ben as well. Really appreciate the support, all you guys. Very, very kind. Some of them even doubled up. So really do appreciate that. But Jack, leave it to you to sign out. Anything you want to say?
No, because, I was going to come up with something clever, but I figure maybe I won't make myself, look silly, and I'll leave it there. Thanks, everybody. It's been a nice one. Good to have these chats. I won't try to come up with anything clever to say. Leave you there, everybody. Have a good weekend. Check your fantasy teams, because Dave and I will be doing a fantasy video tomorrow. So check your fantasy teams. Get ready.
Sean, maybe we should do a fantasy video.
Everyone who's on 600 points or more, put their hand up.
I'm on the ascendancy. Don't worry, I'm about to catch you guys.
I'm coming back. Don't worry about that. I'll be back.
Dave, you've still got Virgil van Dijk as captain all season from last year.
Do you know what, Ben? I still didn't read the rules right. I just put my team together and put it out there. But do you know what? Actually, I blamed Jack last week for for maybe me missing points, because I needed to redo the whole squad, right? And Jack was like, I'll take out Fleckin. So I was like, okay, I'll take out Fleckin. He got more points than Vicario this weekend, who I brought in.
Dave, you want to hear a terrible one, mate? I used one of my free hits or wildcards, whatever it was. I changed my entire team around. I brought in Watkins. I made him triple captain. I had to get rid of Erling Haaland.
Was it triple? Was it triple?
No, sorry, I didn't. No, sorry, I didn't triple captain. Sorry, I captained Ollie Watkins, and he did absolutely nothing. Couldn't hit the backside of a cow. And I take out Erling Haaland, and he goes and gets a brace. Absolute. I used my power play at the worst possible time, and I completely messed up my entire team.
Sean, you know what the stat is? The stat is from last weekend. Nobody underperformed the XG this whole season more than Watkins against Luton.
What a pick!
Unbelievable pick.
He was feeling it. He was feeling it.
Triple captain Haaland.
Yeah, triple captain him, which definitely got me soaring up the table. Everybody, we'll leave you there, though. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. We never stop. See you, everybody.
Stop.